Thank you for showing up to the Sports Performance, Sports Hypnosis and Peak Performance Workshop certification course. My name is Chris Geyer. I'm a certified personal trainer. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, roller and ice hockey coach, have been a ski instructor, a tennis instructor, a fencing instructor, have done some golf, also have become a USA hockey referee as well over the years as a coach. And I was viewing my players primarily from the outside, watching as a coach. But as a referee, I was able to actually get a different perspective. Now that was something that I just brought up for my clients that I've been doing sports and understanding that a mental game for the last 20 years. I actually had what was called in vivo, but I did not have a language to this yet, and that's what I'm looking to give you, and a whole game plan for you as a hypnotherapist, but as well as your clients as coming to see you. Now, as I was totally obsessed with sports and involved in all of this, do you have to be? Absolutely not. If we were all to go through all the issues that our clients go through, where would we be, right? So I'm just letting you know that this can be one of the most easiest therapies that you can get into. You don't have to know the sport, just as you wouldn't have to know all the issues that your clients have that are coming to see you. This can be a place where you have a willing participant. Most often than not, the client that you're seeing for athletics has already taken direction most of their life, okay, or beginning that, and they understand that as a child or an amateur or a pro, there's a certain mental game they're looking to tap into, and this is what you're giving them. You are the mental coach. You're their confidence coach. You can be integrated into a team setting where you can be working with different aspects as to being in a setting of in here in your office, or being outside as what is called in vivo, and I'll explain all this later as we go through this program. And what we're always winding up doing is honing them into what I'll call monoideism. It's from Braid that was looking to coin this as and call hypnosis that in the beginning. But as I said, your client comes in with an awareness to what they want to change. And they're looking to help you to help them. They sort of know when they're getting it and getting their anxiety or their issue, or knowing whenever their performance isn't quite right, because they've been doing it quite often. They'll do it in practice, and then they can't do it in in the event. But in the area of fitness and athletics, as on every level, presents a variety of opportunities to enhance your practice. How many of you are here today, looking to, get into this multi-billion-dollar industry, right? I mean, it's becoming more and more prevalent as, Tiger Woods is a huge advocate, Wayne Gretzky, Mike Tyson had a hypnotherapist as well. But we're looking to tap into this success, tap into this successfully, and this is where you can, because you're here at HMI, and some of the best teachings around of understanding that we have 40 years of tools that I'm going to utilize and help you to bring to your clients. As I said before, we're looking to give you a game plan and help them through this process to hone their focus. This is a $65 billion industry for fitness and athletics. People are buying gear outside of their leagues and organized sports. They go to train for their hobbies. They have, they're part of, different aspects are, beach clubs where they're just paddle tennis players that want to go from a B player to an A player. They have coaches even at that level, that they're just playing as a hobby, but they want to be better, and they have a desire and a need. Where in this immediate area where your client base is quite fantastic, because it's so diverse here in California, but recognize that this is worldwide, and the opportunities here in Los Angeles County for just let's say public golfing on the courses, not including the private, you have 11 courses here in this county of Los Angeles. On a given weekday, you have 250, I think it's 250 players per week, and 350 every weekend day. So, add that up, it comes out to approximately 10,000 start times every month. That's a potential, that's a huge potential of clients just for you right there, understanding that where you can tap into this is people who are putting in, money into, getting their ping golf clubs and being out on the course and putting a lot of money into that. And also they do, a lot of betting on the course, but just to beat their friends as well. But this is something that they're looking to tap into as a mental aspect. Everybody talks about it. There's certain, psychological, sports books out there that are continuously talking about the visualization and mental rehearsal. And what not better than you, that you are the professional at doing this, to putting them into the state and learning a whole new association and response. Recognize, another potential for clients is the tennis court system that we have 30 public here in the LA City area. There's clinics on the weekends. There's private instructors. These are the people that you want to get in with, start to help them move their clients to the next level, because it only helps them to have a referral base for you to be able to help their client get to the next place, which brings them up along the way as well. So it's, it winds up being a win-win situation for everybody. But as this happens, as you can, work with these guys and get, possibly into a place where you're doing what I consider self-hypnosis can be a great place to market yourself. Finding this in our bookstore, the self-hypnosis CD. Now, all this that I'm talking about is to be embellished upon and improvised. Don't necessarily have to do it verbatim, but it creates a tool for you. If you can get into a place where you're working with clinics, with tennis, in the tennis industry, at a certain park, recreational, whatnot, you're able to, start self-hypnosis courses, and with their clients, and then hopefully garner some private clients for yourself. We have the public school, the high school system here. Not in world, I should say, at least in the United States, some are prevalent and take over an entire town, such as football in Texas and whatnot. But we have 28 high schools right here, public, and that doesn't include the private that we have, also as well. And just at Oaks Christian, you have Montana. Snoop Dogg, Wayne Gretzky's children, all playing sports on this football team. This is all a place where you can get, start the process of getting clients. I've worked with some of the high school students in the immediate area. They are not only on the high school teams, they're in tournament teams, so that this can all wind up becoming, great potential for your clients as a place to do self-hypnosis, private lessons, team hypnosis as well. One thing to recognize that this is ever growing is the women's league and women's divisions that we have, especially here in the United States. Whereas Section 9 came into play, is that just recognizing that this is not a men's therapy. This is open to women as well. Working with women sometimes can really be a great advantage to you. At Northridge alone, there's 8 men's teams and there's 10 women's teams. So this is a place where you can grasp a lot of potential clients as well. One thing that goes hand in hand with martial arts is the mind and mental aspect to it. You're not going to put your fist through the board if you're not mentally prepared. This is a place where you can go into a dojo and work with a sensei to work self-hypnosis courses and start that process and getting more clients. But this is a place you can get onto a place where you're working with and marketing yourself as being able to work in this therapy that can be, which I'll continuously tell you, it can be very easy in utilizing the tools that we've learned here. It incorporates many of the tools and the concept you already learned here at HMI. I'm just going to put it all together for you to work in this process and bring some of my language and some of my experiences and how to help your clients as well. One of the things that I stated earlier is that they're already aware of what their issues are. They have particular goals that they wish to achieve, and most importantly, have an interest in bringing it about quickly. More often than not, they are having a place where they're not necessarily having fun anymore, and that's what we're trying to incorporate back into their play. So understanding that you have a willing participant, and that can sometimes be half the battle right there, right? I mean, they understand possibly exactly where their issue stems, and that way you can actually help them through the process. We'll touch on how you can help your clients with motivating them to the next level, identifying and eliminating self-talk, overcoming performance anxiety, addressing fears, honing an athlete's mental game for success. One of the most important aspects that we work with is identifying the problem and what's adversely affecting your athlete or performer. Remember, they already know what their issues are more often than not. At the same time, this is where we start to possibly bring in some of our hypnodiagnostic tools, identifying their motivation. What are their beliefs, their doubts, their expectations? Is it intrinsic or extrinsic? We're going to work with solutions, what I call the mental core, concentration, control, confidence, and commitment. That'll be embellished upon later. Rituals and practices. And lastly, applying hypnosis, in-state learning, in vivo, monoideism. Are there any questions at this time? Feel free. This is going to be going worldwide, so yes.
How easy is it to translate this model to other aspects of people's lives?
Absolutely. This can be used for so many different, different aspects that this doesn't necessarily just need to be for sports. You can use this for, this model here then as, just one that I put together from all the mentors that I had, thanking, George Kappas and Melton for mentoring me and guiding me with, as Elaine Perlis has. I took a little bit from everybody and put this process together. What I came from was, for many years, I was working with athletes, and I was working with what's called in vivo in life, and I was working with them as a private trainer or a hockey coach or a ski coach, and but I recognized there was a mental game, and I didn't realize that I was using focus work, and I was using breath work, and I was using a mental rehearsal and seeing the situation and desensitizing it before they even got into a place of play. So as a defenseman, a person would go through they're taking their slap shot. Here's the puck. Do you see it? Here's the play. The skater's coming at you. Whatnot, and bringing this into different positions and different aspects of what that would entail. It didn't just mean that it worked with hockey players. It's just one that was prevalent that I was working with. I worked with a lot of different sports. And sure enough, I was putting this together. I knew it worked, but I never had a language. I didn't know what I was, literally knew what I was doing. I just knew in the end, the results were happening. So that's all that mattered to my clients. As a matter of fact, a person came to me and wanted a better slap shot, and was referred from a director from the league. He called me up. I told him it would take approximately 6 sessions. We'll work on your posture. We're going to work on your strength training. We're going to get you into the gym. And then we're going to teach you proper techniques along the way. And by the 6th session, the person was built that wanted the slap shot. The 6-10 shots on goal, on target, exactly where they wanted it. And then George Kappas walked away a happy person. And that's the beginning of my hypnosis portion that I was teaching him. He's looking at me, and it was very funny to watch that whole process happen. Identifying the problem as we go through this. Ultimately, the issue is that the athlete is not having fun. Okay? they're somewhere in, they're playing with the same amount, they're not playing with the same amount of enjoyment and once they knew or had. They're now focused on the worries, the doubts, the fears, the anxieties, the game that they once played without being in the conscious mind. The athlete is thinking. When they're thinking, they've already missed, the execution of the play. They've hesitated. It's going to lead to many misplays, errors resulting in diminished, self-confidence, motivation, fears, and unmotivated play. I've put together just a few questions to get you started. If you need to, you can write these down, but I'm just going to go over some of these, that you might want to start with as to your athletes, giving you insight to what where they're coming from. What age did you start? You'll know the difference between an athlete that starts at 4 years old that was pushed by his father or a person who was a couch potato and started a recreational league at the age of 30 and didn't play anything in between. What level or division are you playing now? That'll give you some, an idea as to, okay, they're a Division IV player, which is the lowest compared to a Division I player who is at the highest going into a pro, possibly a pro career. When did you first notice your performance issue? Some of these questions may spark them to, in fact, realize where they did, in fact, lose some of their motivation or their play that they once had. What do you wish to enhance or change about your performance? If you need me to repeat this, I can. What is your long-term goal with this sport? Some people just want to play for the time and they don't have aspirations, whereas 14 to 16, 17-year-old who's playing juniors is going to have a different idea of going into the pro league. Obviously you can embellish and improvise all of this. What would you like to accomplish with hypnosis? And there, in fact, explain to them that hypnosis is a process. It isn't, I should say, a hypno miracle. At times it seems they can be, because this can be translated very quickly, because they are, most often than not, the athlete already has a mind-body connection, and they've learned to take direction in what was said and apply it into their play. So recognizing that as you are helping this through this process, they're going to gain the success, almost instantaneously at times. Where I've taken one client as a 12-year-old that was having issues focusing, worked with him one session, and within 48 hours went out and scored 3 goals, a hat trick, the next game. I turned to the mother, has he ever done that before? No. Was it hypnosis? Oh, I don't know. Nonetheless, it doesn't really matter. These things can be very instantaneous at times. Working with a pro athlete, a pro hockey player, he was a lumber of a runner, if you will. He had literally each thigh was 32 inches around, size of some people's waists, and he was running around his legs, if you will. We changed his posture in the gym, and then I worked with him mentally, and we were just working on lightness and this technique. And as he was running his 40, he went from the lumbering Shrek of a runner to a gazelle, and he turned to me and said, "I've never run that fast in my entire life." And just from a light state of hypnosis, it was fantastic stuff. So you can work in these different capacities, not only as I said, in your office, but going out onto the field with them as well, or the rink, or wherever they may be. Beginning with the first phone conversation and continuing face-to-face, your goal is to uncover specifically what challenges your athlete is facing. The second session, you can utilize some of the tools that we have in the hypnodiagnostic tools, Paris window, corrective therapy. Some of these, sometimes you'll get teenagers that sometimes they don't know exactly what, or don't want to talk about their problem. That may become a reality for them, even though mom or dad brings them in and has them. In fact, you should be asking the child if they want to do hypnosis, and they may say yes. They don't really know exactly what's happening or what's going to happen. We go through our process of understanding the theory of mind and bringing that belief system up. At the same time, they can sometimes be very tight-lipped, right? I mean, if you know teenagers. So this can create a language for you with these questioning and be able to further helping them. Also, when an issue may be elusive to you, working with that, and I don't work a lot with it, with a pendulum and working a yes-no axis, if you will, can bring insight as to if they really want to go on further. And if their subconscious mind doesn't want to go further in their sport, then we're taking our therapy possibly in a different direction. But here, what are their? You're listening to what motivates your athlete and what their beliefs are. What are they? You're listening to what kind of phrases as to if they have some doubts and fears of I didn't practice enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not fast enough, whatever wherever they are at that point, identifying their expectations and listening to, I need to, or I have to score. All these are different motivators that are possibly diminished as understanding that as they get into an extrinsic motivation, possibly, who's telling them they have to score? Who's telling them they have to go out and perform in a certain manner each and every time, and who are they performing for? Who tells them these things? These external sources, can be from the pressure that they have from their coaches, their trainers. I work in different capacities with athletes, and you may know it as just in your own practice as doctors giving them bad suggestions. A trainer might be giving them bad suggestions. I had to, as a hypnotherapist, as one person came in to me, I had to go talk to the trainer to help keep him positive, to help his own client go further, because his trainer was negative to his client. If you're continuously working a negative aspect, and we all understand that whatever affects us emotionally affects us physically, and what affects us physically is going to affect us emotionally, then what message are we sending, to the muscles, to the diminished play that we have there? So you, as a hypnotherapist, can come out and have the coach, the trainer, the managers, everybody on board, understanding what suggestibility they are, and understanding how to talk to this actual client or their athlete to further them and be able to see what their issues are. Obviously, this is all done at the client's either request or permission. But what we're trying to always change and turn the whole perception of this is to an intrinsic motivation, which is an inherently pleasurable for competition or excitement. And when the athlete has the desire to learn and improve for learning's sake, they're focused on personal excellence, and they thrive on on the competition within themselves, not necessarily of what's out there, what's going on with the other client, with the other team or the other opponent. Just taking that back from a place where their extrinsic motivators are, fame and fortune and money, and we can deal with that as a fear of failure, if you will, from somebody that doesn't want to, in fact, live the same life that their impoverished family did, and they want to be better than and go farther forward than their family has, and using sport to get out of that kind of environment, if you will. At the same time, if that athlete doesn't love the sport, how far will they really go? How far is an unmotivated athlete really going to practice, and for how long? If you can keep them, continuously enjoying and learning the process, or keep them having fun, and if you will, anchoring them to having fun. We'll talk about that later. We can keep it fresh for them and keep their motivation, coming from within. It has many payoffs and not limited to task-relevant focus, consistent levels of motivation, decreased stress, elimination of distractions as well. You can see this as not only beneficial in regards to sports performance, but can be carried over into other areas of their lives. A well-rounded, well-adjusted individual translates into a well-adjusted athlete. If we can change that extrinsic focus to the intrinsic, they're the cause. That athlete is the cause of their own behavior. It results in a greater feeling of autonomy. This in turn increases their motivation, and helping the athlete find their fundamental goal should be key in helping them locate that inner meaning of enjoyment. How do extrinsic motivators compare? Extrinsic motivators are externally oriented, like as I said, trophies, scholarship praise, salaries, fame, women, whatever that athlete has heard. And the education system can put a large emphasis on these scholarships and trophies, medals. The society in general can grant the seal of approval, based on the athlete's skill. The football player that is worshipped, as a quarterback or whatnot. But this can all be extrinsic motivation, and if they're playing for somebody else, soon enough that whole process will come about. There have been many athletes who wind up making it to a certain level, and they totally sabotage themselves. And why did you look at how they were trained when they were kids, and their father just every minute of the day was training them out in front of the yard, and it had to be done a certain way, or perfectionism had to be a certain place that they had to keep. But when that athlete was playing for themselves, no one else is pulling the strings, and the motivation comes from within, and the extrinsic motivators are involved. The athletes are more susceptible to losing all that motivation. Not all extrinsic motivators are negative. Obviously, as I talked about, the fear of failure and not wanting to get out of that place that they may be living in, becoming better than their family. But the goal is to motivate them from a sense of purpose, ultimately redirecting the athlete towards fun and success. There's so many times that I'll be in the bullpen, and a hockey parent comes over to the child and is whispering into their ear that they need to score right now because I have 2 minutes left on my videotape machine batteries. And I'm sitting there as a coach, I hear this whispering into a 9-year-old's ear, and I was like, wow, this is not where we want to be playing, this isn't what we need right now. Sometimes they can be very evident as to the extrinsic, what your athlete is motivated by. You might want to write this down. They're motivated by external rewards, accolades, recognition, or praise. But you understand that they, at a certain point, may come to you, they may not even be sure why they're playing the sport anymore, or letting others be the source of their motivation. So when you're hearing this will give you a red flag that they're not playing for themselves. They're playing for somebody else, or they just don't even know why, because they're just so frustrated with what they're doing. Fear of failure, motivated by fear of failure, and affects their performance in competition. Now that's, as we talk about that, is it the fear of failure to not hold up to, the mom and dad's expectations, and that'll give you some insight as well as to, recognizing that if they do need to, you can bring them to a place where they once had fun and bring that back into their play, and finding that can be sometimes very easy, as they remember it very well, because sometimes it has been elusive for them for quite some time. They worry about letting others down and not performing to others' expectations. They're, self-conscious and worry about what others how they may perceive them. Now this sometimes can get into performance anxiety and can be desensitized very easily with systematic desensitization, and we'll get into that as well. But understand that if we can bring that about to a place where they can, literally block that out, and I'll show you some tools and some places and language that I use to help them. Literally, if you take this fear of failure is characterized by a lot of high expectations and the strong desire to only succeed, and they worry about the results and the outcomes and gaining peer approval. Sometimes that can be very evident, especially with children, but recognize that when we're dealing with children, and I think this is a place where this is not tapped into enough as hypnotherapists, is that research has shown that 75% of all athletes drop out of their sport by the age of 13. Okay, so recognize that they're changing over from that critical area of mind at a certain point, and they're starting to take on the secondary caretaker right around that time as well. So this can all be I think a huge part of that as to even my own. I'm sorry, did you have a question? Okay. And as I saw it in my own household with my 12-year-old hockey athlete, my stepson, and he said, I don't want to play anymore. I said, okay, fantastic, you don't have to play, no pressure. 16 years old, he fast forward to 16-year-olds, he wanted for his birthday to be outfitted again for hockey. He said he wanted to play. And I said, are you sure that's what you want to do? So I set him up with a minimal amount of gear, and we went out and started to play a little hockey. And I said, why did you, as I was, at the same time I was, quite interesting, I was putting all this information together. And I asked him, why did you quit hockey? He says, because it wasn't my choice. So even though I never, as far as I've perceived it to be, I never pressured him to play or quit if he wanted to, he still had an idea that he was being pressured. He put his own pressure upon himself to, as I'm a hockey player, he wanted to, in fact, be, somehow have the accolades for myself or recognition, which I always gave him. He was a great player. But his perception was that this time around, he was playing for himself. So that's why he now played again at 16, and he was having fun. So it was okay, fantastic. I'll keep my boundaries as you wish. I had plenty of opportunities to observe these athletes as I said, a coach, a referee, and trainer, and always coming and working as a positive, energy for them. But recognize that some clients, some children, have parents that believe that anger is an energy. This can be a deep association that they start from early on, where the parents will actually come to me and boast that they can wind their kids up and get them all angry and whatnot. And then what happens as they get older, they start to be, the enforcer of the team, and they wonder why they're having so many penalty minutes and why wow, if your association is anger and you're taking it out on the opponent, why wouldn't you think that that's the reason why they're fighting so much? There's a system there that they've built, and there's an association to possible play that has developed around anger, and this around anger, and can be something that that has to be a known, that has become a known, and we need to help turn that around and become positive for them, and hopefully we can get them out of that place of play. In circumstances where athletes, lack an inner drive or unpleasant modes of training, the extrinsic motivators can be helpful at times. Reverting back to progress reports or releases from time of drills, but they're all usually short-term results. If a child or an athlete, an amateur or a pro, is unmotivated to be with the team, and they don't show up for practice, and they're sabotaging themselves because they just don't have it, they just don't have the drive or the whatnot to be there. There's going to be serious consequences, and this is a place where you can also motivate from inner peace and having fun and bring it back around, as well as a marketing tool to have to them as well. Are you not having fun playing your sport anymore? Is it just work? Has your sport become work? You don't want. We never want to have a place where our hobbies or our even the training that the children do today and the amateurs are doing and the pros are doing on a daily basis to be work. Having fun with it is always a place where you want to derive from. If you look in the back of, I believe, your workbook, there's a great example of an article that should be in there about a gymnast named Shawn Johnson. Yes, and I think that on the first page of the last, it just talks about how she has so much fun with this sport. Unfortunately, I do not seem to have it right in front of me, but that's a place of reference for you, and it's as I found that she just loved the sport that she played. Never seemed to have any issues with what was happening with in regards to training and the other distraction that come along with it. We can help clients with these distractions as we go through, as you are working with them to change this perception that we can never really make a whole lot of mistakes in this therapy as long as you're keeping it fun and for yourself and for them, and they'll pick up on this. Make sure that you're playing in your practice with them, and as the children are younger, you can always use fantasy play, but that doesn't mean that you can't go on certain journeys with your clients and keeping that fun and fresh for them as well, with a place that comes from fun and being positive. Are there any questions? Great.
You mean like in hypnosis? You're creating fun.
Exactly, and what we're going to talk about as well later is what I call in-state learning, and if you can, it's almost an anchor, if you will, and understand that while you are working in systematic desensitization and working with guided imagery and visualization, you're just by working with visualization alone before you even started the systematic desensitization process, they have already desensitized the negative issue. Note that's on the test, I believe. So just them going through the process of having fun and going and seeing themselves during play, and they'll tell you, your clients will come to you and say, I drive on the tee fantastic, and I'm on the fairway and I'm doing great. And sure enough, what will happen is they get out of the cart and they start their negative self-talk. And they'll tell you things like this. They know exactly when it starts. That some are very aware of where exactly they lose their play. And then what does that in turn, their self-confidence comes down and they're not having fun anymore because that motivation is gone. So we're training them in visualization, understanding that, and I'll say that, I'll probably repeat this a number of times, is that when a client is working in visualization and working with this guided imagery, and you're putting them through the paces of their practice, and you're slowing it all down for them at times to be able to, as we do slow it down for them, what we're doing is we're creating a new known. We're creating a new neural pathway, neuromuscularly. They're actually firing the same muscle because the mind doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. So when they are working in the mind and going through the paces of their practice or the event, if they were hooked up to a biofeedback machine, they'd actually show response on the actual muscle, that if you put a runner and they were running, the muscles are actually firing to a certain degree. Okay, So what that lends to you as a mental coach, as this confidence coach, whatever you want to call yourself, allows them to work without compensation, without fatigue. Can you imagine working as an athlete without fatigue? I mean, that's what they're continuously working towards, hours and hours of repetition to have an automated successful outcome. You're doing it possibly, as that child was, as 12, and he went and did 3 goals. That can be very instantaneous for them. So keeping that going as well can be a place where you're helping them through this process. So we're setting that process as an anchor, if you will, anchoring them in later to that whole process of here's what we want as an outcome. We're gonna put you through the motions. Now you're working in your office, and then that may in turn they may ask you to come out and play, come out and see them play on the field, the rink, whatever it may be, on the court, and put them into a state of hypnosis there as well. Now that can all be done, as well as phone calls. I'll get my athletes who need what I call a hit. They call in, and I'll give them a hit of hypnosis, and they're good to go and they're ready to rock. If they just can't seem to get that process that I made for them down, sometimes they can hone it, and sometimes we can be distracted. Just as every day by day brings new challenges.
So are they playing, if you're going to go compete, are you in a light state of
Okay,
hypnosis?
Exactly. So monoideism is prevalent. The athlete is going into hypnosis. What we're directing them towards is where their focus is. Are they going to be focused on all the distractions that they have emotionally or physically? Emotionally, they drove to the game, they were late, they got the coach is upset, whatnot. Physically, how many times have we seen right behind the free throw is that those little squigglies that are right behind the free throw line, right? And they're what a distraction for somebody trying to shoot the basket. Can we, as we train them in hypnosis, we can, if you were to take that, you erase all of that out of the way. They're training and starting that whole process of anchoring without any of the distractions, because they bring it up and they fade it and pass it and whatnot, and then you can start this anchor into their free throw. And I always said that I wish Shaq had given me a call, because that was just, at that point when the Lakers were going, he wasn't hitting it. I was like, I can come and help this guy. 30 minutes, we'll be just fine. But exactly, that's what we're doing. The athlete is going into hypnosis. They need to be focused in some manner. It's just what their focus will be. Now this is interesting, because where your client can you can help change their perception as to, let's take that person who was playing with anger as a hockey player, and what that turns into is somebody who, for them, it was somebody who got chippy with them, or who was giving them a hard time on the boards with the referee's back turned. And now, are you going to allow that person to get into your mind and disrupt your focus in game and only be focused on getting in retribution of that player? Or are you going to be focused on turning that and saying, take it as a compliment, because they obviously deem you as an opponent that needs to be reckoned with, and they're only trying to get into your head. So we can change that perception. They're like, oh wow, this person really, now that person thinks very highly of themselves, because they're now that much better than that person that's that was trying to play a dirtier game, if you will. And when we can leave that all behind and change that perception, then they're focused on only what they want to achieve in their play. Did that answer the question? Yes?
You cover or go over getting over mental blocks, like where they get to the point and they constantly fail at right when they're ready to succeed.
Yeah. So the archer that has the focus, and they've been training, and all of a sudden, right before release, they have a little subconscious reaction. And this is where the in-state learning comes from, is you put them through, anchor them in, and they're training in the mind, and they have the new known, because at a certain point it became a known that they actually needed to either take a breath or move in some ab reaction that happened within their muscular system. You're training them in state learning and being able to create that different response. Clear? Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Actually,
Yeah.
regarding motorcycle riding, I've seen some racers on the pro circuit just succumb to...
My helmet.
You were an easy rider, right?
My Hot Wheels helmet.
Succumb to the superior rider just because he's won so many other titles.
Right.
Someone's been leading him the whole race, and then the last lap the guy crashes and lets the one who's been behind him just go in and take the win.
That's right.
Because what I perceived was they expected this guy to win. They didn't expect to win themselves. They couldn't handle actually winning and all the responsibility that came with it. So how do you cross that barrier? You've got, it's a steep hill. Do you know who Valentino Rossi is?
I do not.
He's sort of the Michael Jordan of motorcycle racing.
Which category?
MotoGP.
Okay.
Premier class. And he does amazing things. He deserves the reputation he has. But there are guys who are equally as good who seem to just give in to him.
Yes.
So how do you get someone over that?
So yeah, and what is that? That's a known, right? We may not know our competitor, but this person's so highly regarded, right? Are we talking about the person who is behind the main athlete, or the main athlete that winds up crashing out?
The athlete who's not the world champion time and time again is leading the race.
Well, exactly. And where, there's so many, when you get into these different aspects of competition, recognizing that there's a known there just for not being a factory rider, right? It's always been told that how many factory riders who do win and who aren't the factory riders that are just independents trying to win, right? So there may be, as they come up, that known is that they're not going to be as good as the factory rider because of the support that they have, right? Now they build some confidence as they win some races and whatnot, and then those knowns build upon their confidence, and it can go into so many different realms of, as these knowns happen, the process for them is to recognize that helping them identify where they have their hesitations. Because if everybody's different, and if they have an unknown that they feel that they aren't good enough to be, or if they have the pressures, so let's take that. Do we have the pressures of winning and being able to race another day, because if they don't win this next race, they don't have any money to race again. Right, so there could be all these external pressures, that are there. As we process this, identifying the issue, we help to build new associations for a different response. Wherein lies is all about you as a therapist as to where they have that block. Where are they sabotaging themselves? Where do they don't feel worthy enough to go forward? They may have, it could be 1,000 different things. It may be just something that is as easy as telling them as a staircase of building their self-confidence. I had a client that would see me intermittently, and he was a up-and-coming hypnotherapist, and I've used with him over and over, locking in with the staircase. And he turned and said, can we use something besides the staircase? And I said, wow, really? You've come, he gained so much distance from the place I began with him to the year later that he was, and just, using that over and over. I said, it works so well for you. You really want to change something that works for you? He says, but what he was looking for was different language for his own hypnotherapy practice. He says, you know what, as he thought about it, you were right, that works for me. I was just looking for, to build that as to my own practice. But that the mind needs repetition. Don't forget that, you know, as the mother nature of all learning is repetition. You don't think that at times this isn't a process. And sometimes it can be very quick, but at times it can be something that you need to you know, take out as your therapy, as a therapist, and to draw out and may be elusive to you at times, and sure enough something may spark by the questions that you ask. I'd look at that and start to look at corrective therapy for that particular rider, and see, you know, what their process is as maybe something that holds them back, you know, through that whole subconscious process.
That's a great recommendation. Another rider that I was thinking of is Max Biaggi, who was a 4-time world champion before he got into the premier class. He was dominating that or doing well. Rossi is younger and came up, and Biaggi's comment was, this guy's been racing me, you know, his whole life. I've been racing him for a couple of years. Right. And this guy just dominated Biaggi the whole time. Biaggi went down to another class and is doing the same thing. He actually went back, but the guys are pushing him back into maybe the top 10. But there's still the core guys for 1, 2, and 3, and he's fully capable of racing.
Right.
This guy's beating all of them.
He's got a little mental block. You know what else? If he has a mental block like that you see that this keeps happening with him as he goes into different divisions, I would definitely take a look at using EFT. EFT is a course that's here taught by Susie Kappas. But this can be a place where you can remove mental blocks sometimes very quickly, and it works with, if you don't know, it works with meridians as an acupuncture to help with negative belief system, negative patterns, and see that maybe this might be a place where they can also get some help with as well.
With EFT, there's a lot of neuro-linguistic programming, language and frames of reference.
Not necessarily. Sometimes keeping it very simple can be the easiest therapy for them, and just going through the process of, you know, obviously they're going to give you the language or see where their blocks are, but this might be a place where they that can, if they have it internally as a physical response, that you'll have to root that out, if you will, that it can be very quickly diminished. Let's see if we can go forward with that guy. Yes?
Yeah, I had a strange experience. My son was an extremely talented soccer player at a young age, and he was playing in a silver league, you know, and they became so good, and he was scored so many times, and the coach was just really pushing. Yeah. Come on, Michael, you can run faster, you know, I mean, literally. And he became extremely good. One time he was running down the field, half field, he kicked the ball right over the goalie and into the goal.
Right.
From half field at full run.
Right.
Now that was as a silver coach. Now they became so good, they changed the team to a gold, which was the older and better level.
Right, they moved up.
And they put together an all-star team of all the best players in the entire city of Mission Viejo to challenge everybody else. They never won a game. They never scored. What happened was, I don't know how it happened psychologically with the coach. The coach became, instead of a positive reinforcer and really pushing them, to a negative. In other words, if they took a shot at the goal and they missed, he made them run laps several times with all the gear in the heat and one thing and another. And it became a failure model. In other words, if you don't do it right, if somebody got the ball away from you, you had to run a couple of laps. Every single player resented it. The top players in the city, and they never won a game or anything in the next whole season. There was all that negative, the anger of the players. And I asked my son, I said, what happened? You guys should have won every game.
Yeah.
He said everybody in the team was so angry at the coach because of all the punishments that they just wouldn't perform.
Yeah.
So when you have a situation like that, how do you coach the player who's in a negative environment?
You coach the coach.
I'm sorry?
You coach the coach. You may have to do that.
You can't.
Well,
Yeah,
you have a perfect paradigm. You had these guys at a great level, and now they're coming from an extrinsic, you know, negative area. You know, that can be, you know, that diminished motivation right there. Sometimes as a hypnotherapist, as you bring yourself on, I've worked as with the team, and like I said, I've worked helping them understand their suggestibility. I worked with a boxer that was a somnambulist. And he could take in all kinds of different suggestions, and he actually, as far as I'm concerned, lost his own bout one time because he thought that the inference that he heard was that they were going to, in fact, stop the fight, so he stopped it before they did.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, you can talk to the coaches as to, just as I told you about the trainer who was negative to his own client, and say, hey, you know what? Let's try something different. What can it hurt? Because you're not winning anyway, right?
Yeah, I did make several suggestions, and several other parents did too. But he was became obsessed with winning the game, and he thought that the way to do it was not only to push them now, but to criticize them if they didn't win.
Hypnosis can help him with that.
I'm sorry?
Hypnosis can help him with that.
Yeah,
but
if you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is maybe a place where you need to have support from a wide range of people who are taking, that have put a lot of time and effort into their children, and now watching this diminished play, and they're not going forward. It's something that you may have to take up with the coach and have him try something different altogether.
We tried to do an intervention, but he was obsessed. He wouldn't change it.
At that point, you might want to take a look at what his level was and how far he made in his known, and why he's bringing that negative around and saying, hey, look, let's analyze you and say, well, you didn't. If he was the gold player that never made it to the pro, he might be stuck in his own block, right there, and his association came from his negative idea, understanding that he brought these kids up, but then he was in the gold, and was he a gold player, and did he go past that? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not trying to. But if he might be stuck there, you might have to help him.
Okay, but to the central question, you have a player who's on a team that should be performing well, and they have the negative environment. Is there anything you can do in helping the player to perform or to find enjoyment in that environment if you can't change the environment? Yes,
absolutely. Bring them into, we're going to have to actually take a break here, and we can actually get into this right after this break. Would that be okay with everybody? I'd like to talk more about this because it's into the core ideas of what we're talking about here today.